The sirens had faded, but the house still screamed. It wasn't a sound anyone could hear, but Officer Daniel Ramirez felt it echo in his chest as he stood at the foot of the driveway. A child's plastic tricycle lay toppled near the porch, one wheel slowly turning in the evening breeze. Yellow police tape crisscrossed the wooden fence. Neighbors stood silently in their doorways, clutching robes and coffee mugs as if holding on to normality. But there was nothing normal about what had happened on Maplewood Lane. Inside that quiet house, 6-year-old Emily Carter had vanished without a trace. The case had shaken the entire precinct. A little girl tucked into bed by her mother, Laura, around 8 p.m. No broken locks, no forced windows, no security footage showing anyone entering or leaving. By morning, Emily was gone, as if the night had swallowed her whole. That was 3 days ago. Now, desperation was setting in. Every minute mattered. Every failed lead added weight. Of the officers working the case, and for Ramirez, it was personal in a way he hadn't expected. He gently adjusted the leash in his hand. At the other end stood Shadow, a retired military German shepherd who had seen more war zones than most men. Shadow's sleek black coat and deep amber eyes made him look almost otherworldly, calm, calculating, and endlessly loyal. But Ramirez knew there was pain behind those eyes. Shadow had lost his previous handler to a roadside bomb. Since then, he hadn't trusted anyone until Ramirez. Ramirez, too, was carrying a wound that never quite healed. 3 years ago, his own daughter, Mia, passed away after a sudden illness. It had torn his world apart. The uniform had become his armor, the badge his shield, but no amount of work could fill the hollow space Mia had left behind. So when the call came for a missing girl, something pulled at him, a voice that whispered, "You have..." Could save a part of himself. Before we go deeper into this emotional story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Loyal Hearts. If you believe in kindness, second chances, or the unshakable loyalty of animals, your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Let's keep hope alive together. Ramirez and Shadow entered the house where detectives were already combing the living room. Emily's mother sat on the couch, trembling, eyes hollow from days without sleep. Her hands clenched the pink ribbon Emily used to wear in her hair. Upstairs, everything appeared untouched. The bedroom was like a snapshot from a normal night. Pajamas folded on the dresser. A storybook halfway closed on the bed. The smell of lavender from the nightlight drifting through the air. But Shadow paused at the threshold. His ears perked. His body stiffened. He let out a low, uncertain growl, not of aggression, but of tension, like a taut wire ready to snap. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. He whispered, "What is it, boy?" Shadow stepped inside slowly, nose close to the floor. He sniffed around the bed frame, then stopped, his gaze fixed on the rug beneath the bed. He began to scratch slowly at first, then more urgently. He growled again, louder this time. Ramirez rushed over, lifted the rug, and saw something odd. A floor great old, rusted, covered in layers of dust. But something was off. The screws looked too clean, as if someone had recently taken them out and put them back. Kneeling down, Ramirez unscrewed the grate with trembling hands. It came loose with a quiet pop. Beneath it was a narrow, dark tunnel, just big enough for a small child to crawl through. The crawl space led to the basement, and as he slowly entered, his flashlight illuminated walls lined with cobwebs and forgotten insulation. The smell was thick, damp wood, mildew, and something else. Whimper. Emily, he called softly, crawling forward, heart racing. Shadow stayed behind him, tail stiff, ears high. They found her in a small pocket of the crawl space, curled in the fetal position, clutching her storybook to her chest. Her eyes were wide with fear, her lips cracked and dry. But she was breathing, alive. Ramirez gasped. "She's here! I've got her!" He reached out carefully and Emily flinched, but then her eyes caught Shadow. She blinked, once, twice, and something in her posture shifted. She reached out and placed a trembling hand on Shadow's fur. The dog nuzzled her gently, his tail beginning to wag. Later, investigators would piece together the grim truth. A neighbor, someone familiar to the Carters, had been struggling with severe mental illness. He built the crawl space himself years ago, during renovations, and kept it hidden. He believed the world was dangerous, poisoned by cruelty and chaos. He thought Emily was special, someone to protect. He had lured her with promises of a game and hidden her away beneath her own room. The man had intended to keep her there for as long as necessary. If Shadow hadn't sensed something beneath that bed, if he hadn't scratched and growled, they may never have found her in time. The man was arrested at a nearby gas station, trying to flee town. When police asked why he did it, he said, "I just wanted her to be safe." The world watched as Emily was reunited with her mother. News cameras rolled, and strangers wept from thousands of miles away. But amid the flashbulbs and headlines, Ramirez stood quietly with Shadow, hand on the dog's neck. The true hero hadn't worn a uniform or held a badge. He'd had 4 legs, a broken heart, and a soul tuned to pain. In the days that followed, Ramirez returned to the house, not as an officer, but as a friend. He brought Emily a new stuffed animal, one that looked like Shadow. The little girl was slow to speak again, but she smiled every time she saw the dog. She would crouch beside him, whispering secrets into his fur, things no adult would ever know. Laura, her mother, often cried in private. The trauma lingered, but she said something one day that stayed with Ramirez forever. "You didn't just find her. You gave her back to me." What she didn't know was that Emily had given something back to him too. Ramirez found himself laughing again. He found himself opening drawers where Mia's photos were kept, daring to feel the love instead of just the loss. He and Shadow went on long walks together after shifts, sometimes sitting for hours in the park watching children play. Life had returned. Not perfect, not painless, but possible. Months later, the precinct held a community day. And a small ceremony was organised for Shadow. Officers lined up in dressed blues, families clapped, and Emily stood bravely on stage. Her tiny hand held a heart-shaped plastic medal on a red ribbon. She bent down and placed it gently around Shadow's neck. "I love you," she whispered into his ear. Shadow didn't understand the words, but his eyes softened and his tail wagged slow and steady. For him, that moment was enough. And somewhere deep in the heart of Officer Ramirez, a quiet peace finally settled. He didn't need to be fixed. He just needed to be found. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that sometimes the smallest hands can save the strongest hearts, and that true loyalty never fades, then please like, comment, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Loyal Hearts, for more real-life stories that uplift, inspire, and remind us of the quiet power of love, loss, and loyalty. Because sometimes all it takes is one dog.